Hey, my name is Mike, and this is a too long didn't read version of Mannoroth on normal and heroic. In phase 1, there are 3 summoners around the room that spawn adds in accordance to who they are. The summoner by the redstone is usually killed first. He puts a debuff called Curse of the Legion on a random player. When it's dispelled or fades away, it deals a ton of damage to that player, and it also spawns a Doomlord. The Doomlord will put a stacking debuff on the tank called Doomspike. The more stacks the tank has, the more damage he'll take when this debuff goes away. Tanks may want to do some swapping for this. He also puts a 15-second debuff on people called Mark of Doom, indicated by these purple circles. If the debuff expires, you die. The only way to remove it is to take damage, and the fastest way to do that is to go to the center of the room. He also does a raid-wide AoE called Shadow Bolt Volley, which should be interrupted. The summoner at the purple stone is usually killed second. He spawns these imps. When the imps reach full mana, they teleport to a random location and deal damage to anyone within 15 yards. They also just spam Fell Blast, which can be interrupted. The summoner at the green stone spawns Infernals. These green swirlies spawn Dread Infernals and do damage to anyone within 10 yards of impact. This ad cannot be tanked, and for 17 seconds he does an AoE to anyone within 10 yards of him. After that, he moves to another location and does it all over again. When all 3 summoners are dead, phase 2 starts. In phase 2, the imps and the Infernals will continue to spawn, and they need to be killed first. Mannoroth himself does something called Glaive Thrust at the tank. This hits very hard and applies a 10-second dot. If the tank uses mitigation for this, he will not get the dot. After the boss does this, he'll do Massive Blast, where he deals a ton of damage and knocks the tank back and puts a 45-second debuff on them that makes them take 300% more damage from the blast. Then after that, he'll do another Glaive Thrust again. A tank swap should be happening after the blast. Don't stand in these very hard to see black circles. Mannoroth fears random people for 4 seconds. Once that person is done being feared, they'll do a high amount of damage split between anyone in that circle. Mannoroth also spawns these circles 3 times in a row. Each one gets bigger and more powerful, so make sure not to stand in it. For this phase, the tanks have their backs to a pillar, and your raid can either stand on the side of the boss or behind the boss. At 65%, phase 3 starts and the imps stop spawning. Mannoroth still does all of his abilities from phase 2 in addition to something called Shadow Force. He selects random people and then pushes them off the platform. If you have this, just run towards the boss. The positioning for this phase is the same as phase 2. It's probably best to stack up behind the boss before Shadow Force comes out. This way you have as much distance as possible to run for it. At 35%, phase 4 starts and the ads will no longer spawn. Mannoroth has all of his abilities from phase 3, but they do additional stuff. These black circles spawn more frequently and do more damage as this fight goes on. The amount of people standing in the circle for the fear dictates how big of a pool will spawn when all the damage is split. In this phase, you want to send as few people as needed for the fear so you don't have an entire platform filled with this pool. The 3 circles that are cast in a row now deal damage based on how close you are to them, so get as far away as you can. Shadow Force will now push everybody in the raid. Glaive Thrust is now also a frontal cone ability, and Massive Blast will shoot these purple waves out in front of the boss. In this phase, the tanks turn the boss around so they're near the center of the room. This is because the pillars are no longer attached to the platform. No one but the tank should be standing in front of the boss. After Shadow Force went out, everyone switched to the other side of the platform so we weren't standing in the pools. If this fight is taking you a long time, you can pop all your offensive cooldowns, including Lust and Heroism, at the start of the fight. Otherwise, you should be saving the big cooldowns for phase 4 at 35%. Defensive cooldowns can be used for the fear or tank abilities, but they also should all be up for phase 4. That was a too long didn't read version of Mannoroth on normal and heroic. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments. Thanks for watching and have a spectacular day.